intervention should be. I'll ask you the questions. Please go ahead. Yeah.
But what we are struggling with, and I still believe is a very strong issue that we must address, is this issue of alliances formed on the basis of tribal calculations to capture power. This is a problem that as a country we must reflect and accept is a problem. Because there is no any ideological...
But is into alliance not the same?
Let him
I was just listening.
Come on.
Because you know for a fact that there's no alliance between Kenya Kwanza and ODM. Okay? The people who went into government went at individual capacity with goodwill of the party leader in the stability that we told you. There is no any signed coalition agreement with government. ODM is not, and I'm telling you for a fact as a NEC member of ODM, that ODM will front a presidential candidate come 2027 because we believe that we are the only party that can ideologically mobilize nationally, and it has been tested over 20 years. Of all these political parties that you are seeing, none of them is as old as ODM. So don't lecture me on the basis of why ODM is also in another coalition. It's not. But that said,
did the party leader knew that 4 of his senior-most members...
He has pronounced himself on this and you've got records.
No, he hasn't.
He
hasn't.
Yes, a number of times.
He hasn't.
A number of times Raila Odinga has pronounced himself on this. And if you want further conversation about Raila's beliefs on that, I think you can actually look for him. I cannot speak on his behalf. That would be unfair.
So, Oparanya, Mbadi, Joho, and... Oparanya, Mbadi, Joho.
I hope you still allow me to express
your point on the alliance. Yes, you'll make your point.
So I want to make point on that.
On the point, but are you then telling the Kenyan people that the 4 ODM senior members were co-opted into cabinet without the knowledge of Odinga?
I cannot speak about knowledge of Odinga, okay, because I'm not Odinga. But what I know as a party member is that when they chose to go into government, right, they were serious, not just members of ODM party, but they were serious leaders of ODM party. I am also a leader in ODM party NEC. But when they made that decision, they actually came to us in NEC and requested that they relinquish their duty, which is the honor I give them, because that is a very honorable thing to do, which then indicates that ODM did not join the government as a coalition or as an alliance. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. And then I'm coming back to the alliance, because those alliances are ideology. I can tell you for a fact that even Kalonzo...
We have not formed an alliance with anybody.
Just relax. Why are you itching?
We have not...
even Kalonzo, if you look at Kalonzo and Martha Karua, who are in Azimio, you know this, that in 2022 they were in Azimio. There are some ideological beliefs that they have, that I also personally do have, and people in ODM have, that you can actually be able to trace. You know, somebody like Martha Karua, if you trace her history, from the time that she was a judge, you can only find one... Magistrate. A magistrate, I mean. You can find only one challenge at the heat of the moment in 2027 is when you can find Martha Karua...
2007?
2007. You can find a fault in Martha Karua.
I was there.
The violence, you were there.
I was there.
But any other time that you look at Martha Karua and her history, you will see that Martha has been steadfast on Martha's principles, Martha's social democracy, Martha's fighting for what is right, and most importantly, Martha's fighting against what we call primitive accumulation of wealth using government infrastructure. And you can see from what Martha owns and how Martha lives. You can see also this reflect on Kalonzo Musyoka. These are some things that I admire about them as leaders in my country, that they have got some ideology that we do share. But if you look at the coalitions that have been formed, especially in post-2007, the coalitions that have been formed have been coalitions that are tribally charged, without a political ideology, without ideals, and that ends up informing how they go into governance. If you give me a time, just to
yes, briefly, before I want to go to Charles.
Number one, if you look at what Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto formed as a coalition, what was the ideology of that coalition? Zero. And it came into power to the extent that it was marred by scandal after scandal because of what Ashi said. In the place of lack of ideology, what you then end up having is interest. And those interests are vested interests that are about individuals, which is why you'll find that somebody like Rigathi Gachagua, who has not been in public life for long, as compared to Kalonzo or Martha Karua, is, in terms of wealth, probably richer than these two, because it's about public interest. They get into power and then they amass wealth. If you look at the coalition between Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, what was the ideology that they had? They had zero ideology.
So according to you, William Ruto has no ideology?
No,
and you're in government with him.
Let me just come to that. Let me just come to that. Just give me time.
The coalition is the framework
that they had zero ideology, which even led to even this kind of impeachment, because the conflict, and I was in this TV with you, and I told you that the problem that I was seeing between Rigathi before impeachment and Ruto was not an issue of ideology. It was an issue of greed and vested interest. I said that, you can quote me on this TV.
So the fallout was only about greed?
Yes, and because of that, what we are seeing now, Rigathi Gachagua told this nation when we started 2022, that he has got evidential facts that your friend Onyonka is here talking about Matiang'i. You can remember that Onyonka has been here very strongly talking about Matiang'i going to run, and you can see that Onyonka himself, who has been a serious debater on matters public interest, was in that meeting. Gachagua told the nation that there are people who took cash and stuck it in sacks, right? When they came in and they ran away with the money, to the extent that the country had no any money. He said this. Which is a
misleading statement.
Which was a misleading statement.
Yeah, because
right? so
the numbers don't support that.
And he hinted, he was short of pointing the hands on Matiang'i, who was then the de facto deputy president after the fallout between Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto. And then today, that conglomeration of people, Matiang'i, Rigathi Gachagua, want to come together and tell us that they've got some meaningful coalition that young people in this country should even think about. They make it impossible even for the Gen Z movement to be independent and devoid of tribal conversations. And you can see some of the Gen Z are already tempted to think tribally. There's a young Gen Z who was talking in a more tribal way. You've seen some young Gen Zs also trying to get recourse in some tribal conglomeration. Mm-hmm. What we must fight, my friend Ayub, is the idea that people want to organize this country on the basis of tribe and on the basis of coalitions that are based on hate of individuals and people. And this, not to single out any region, this has been prone, especially with politicians who come from Central.
Okay.
And this
that's blanket statement. I mean,
that's very unfair. I have to withdraw that.
It's your opinion. Okay.
I think it's my opinion. A few politicians. Yes.
Let me get it to Eddie. Hang on. Order. Hang on, Eddie. Allow me to ask you this. Yes, it's your opinion, not that of Royal Media Services or Citizen Television or all this show, to be specific.
Yes.
But I think that's unfair characterization of leaders from Central Kenya.
No,
it's a wholesale condemnation, the broad brush painting, which is unfair to the leaders from Central Kenya.
I want to make it clear, right, that there are politicians who end up mortgaging their tribes and using politics of hate against one another, which is something I'm not apologetic about, because this country has bled on the basis of people weaponizing their tribes and people weaponizing hate of individuals to the extent that it makes our politics impossible.
Point made.
Right? And Rigathi Gachagua cannot go that way.
When it's not specific to Central, it's across the country.
Yeah, it's across the country.
Amir, you'll make your point.
It's across the country.
Yes.
But a few we have seen doing it in a way that should not continue in this country.
Yes, Charles.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, Senator Manzo said that